which was there, the monarch was there, the feudal lords were there. So that was a big kind of impediment to sovereignty, because by definition, sovereignty would be undivided. Okay. Now, what happens from here? That capitalism, in order to flourish, needs sovereign. Can anyone who can explain this to me? Why I have written this? Anyone? Why does we talk about capitalism when we are talking about sovereign? Capitalism to flourish needs sovereign. How? Yes, anyone. Why am I saying that capitalism in order to flourish needs sovereign? Not exactly to have laws in their favor, as Kishkat is saying. Again, quick decision making. You all are seeing the contemporary applications. See, capitalism is something like contract would be there, something like social contract. Now, who would enforce that? Who would see that capitalists have their estates safe? Who would make sure? Yes, of course, the state would, as Subhana said. Who would ensure the enforcement of the contract? Buyer and seller are having a contract, right? When buyer and seller are having a contract, like this is a buyer, there's a seller, and there's a contract that is between them. Now, how is this contract being enforced? Where is the authority? That comes from sovereign. And who is sovereign? State is sovereign. Are you understanding it? All of you? Anyone who has an issue here? Okay. I'll explain it again, but nothing to worry about. Just see. Capitalism would mean that there are contracts between buyer and seller. This you agree with? Please wait for the Leo state. I thought this you agree with? That capitalism will have a contract, any form of formal business structure that requires a contract, right? That's why people prefer formal structures, because there is a legally enforceable contract. Now, this contract has to be enforced, right? So, who has the might to enforce that? The sovereign has. Which sovereign? The state is. So, a sovereign state, no, it does not. It influences the state. This is a Marxist discourse that you are saying. Not every thinker same things like that. So sovereign would favor, or the more appropriate word would be back the capitalism procedure, the procedures of capitalism. Okay. Now saying that so market will be affected, sovereign will be affected by market is a Marxist narrative. Yes, it's a kind of social contract itself. But social contract is between the subject and the state. The contracts in modern business times are between the buyer and the seller, the service provider and the service keeper, right? Who enforces that? The state does. What would happen? What would happen if you are engaged in a commercial purchase? Suppose you are going to buy a house, product, right? Suppose you take a service like let us feel good and think good that Corona is over, and you are on a vacation. You went to a resort in a hill station somewhere in Kashmir. Okay, beautiful place. But then what you were told was missing there, and you have already paid for that. So where would you go? Of course, you will seek legal remedy, right? Correct. So it is. And how does that happen? Because that mechanism to provide you the legal remedy lies with the state. Yes or no? You understood it now? All of you? If there was no state, will there be courts? Although, again, don't take it, because this we have to study later in Indian government and politics. Your IGB part, court are not state as per Article 12. Keep this in mind, because there is a controversy going on recently. I hope, I wonder if anyone of you have seen any debate or read any news piece regarding this. We will discuss it later on. Having said this, court is not a synonym for state. Today itself, where Sumana? Kahan pad liya? Okay, in Hindu. I have not read Hindu. Okay, good. So, having said this, that court is not a part of state, we still know that court exists because a sovereign state exists. This is how it's enforceable. Okay, no questions, anyone now? Okay, good. You learned it in Indian Express also. Kalyan sir talked about it. Good. Now, next point. No external body like the church can claim supremacy over the state or try to influence it. So, sovereignty by its very definition is undivided. So, external bodies cannot try to influence it. Man has transferred all his rights to the state, and this transfer is permanent, which means this is kind of irreversible. Something like the Indian federal structure, indestructible union of destructible states. The states have no right to secede as per the Article 1 of the Indian Constitution. So, as per the sovereignty theory of Hobbes, Once the man has transferred his rights to the states, he has surrendered his right to the states, he cannot take it back because there would be chaos. If the man tries to claim sovereignty back from the state, there will be chaos because that will lead to so much of tentative. What is the spelling? Sahi likha? I don't know if I wrote it correctly. Tentativeness. It is uncertainty. Okay, today you are surrendering the rights. Today you are recalling it. How would the state function? So man should live under the absolute authority of the state or live in anarchy. There are just two states. There's two options that a man is left with. Okay, what are the options? One option is you live under sovereign state or you live under state of anarchy. There is no middle way. These, this is the timeline. You have to choose either this or this. There is nothing in between. Okay, so either you come here or you live there, which again translates into the fact that except for a sovereign state or an absolute state, the other option is total anarchy and orderlessness. Understood? Yes or no? So either you come with a sovereign or you live in anarchy, live in the state of anarchy. Nothing in between is possible. Who is saying this? Mr. Hobbes. Law is the command of, is his famous statement. Okay, that law is the command of sovereign. Why is he saying so? He's saying so because what is law? Everyone, every citizen is bound by the law. Okay, bound by law made by the state, right? The sovereign state, and state will punish violation of law. Of course, it will punish the violation of law. So now what happens? Everyone is bound to obey the law made by the state. State has the power to punish those who do not obey the law because person who is not abiding with the state law is claiming his own sovereignty. Why? Because this is something which is only with the state. Again, what state does? Challenge to. Is this okay? This mini flowchart. This is how we learn the entire concept in political science. The sovereign state has made law. You do not agree with law, which means you have challenged the state. You think you yourself are the sovereign, but there can only be one sovereign. Okay, because sovereignty is unique, undivided. Okay, any questions till here? There is nothing called dissent when the law is being made. As per the, you will see the dissent part because absolute state as is written here isn't a totalitarian state. I think it's very much clear to here. Now let us try to understand his concept of where is the dissent here. As someone has asked, that is there no dissent when the law is made? Once the laws are made, are we bound to follow the laws even if they are immoral, unethical? Okay. If you challenge the law, you are challenging the sovereignty, and state will deal accordingly. To challenge the sovereignty of the state. But here it is given, it has absolute power except right to life. Okay. In India, it is Article 21. Absolute state is not a totalitarian state. Here, there is no dissent, no contrary opinion. Okay, these are the features of totalitarian state. But absolute state is not equal to totalitarian state. How is it possible? Even democratic countries can have absolute powers, absolute states. See, at best, absolute state is sovereign. Totalitarian state is, there's a difference. Democratic countries are sovereign, they are not totalitarian. That a country can take sovereign decisions. Okay. Now these decisions, not exactly. See, again, there are many examples through which we can see that. Like the absolute state comes with a law. You don't agree with that law. You find it to be immoral, unethical. Where constitution and people might wait. Yeah, no, yes, that's what it is. Constitution is the law of the land. Okay, and constitution can only be amended. It cannot be altered. Yesterday, Mr. I know. I hope you have heard about him. He passed away. I've written a big senti note. I'll send it to you in your group. Passed away yesterday. 89-year-old guy. Okay, Kerala Mutt. He saved India. The case that saved India. Shall I send it in your group? Okay, after the class, whatever I want you to read, that I will send you. There are articles today, but there was an article which I remember from 2013. I read it in Hindu. I have sent it to several students. I'll send it in your group also. And what I have written, I will send that to you as well in the group. So subject to that basic doctrine, law cannot be changed. What would a totalitarian state say? Whether there is a constitution or not, is immaterial, ruler, he will rule. And you cannot challenge him. You cannot criticize him. You cannot dissent. That's the difference. You can criticize a law. You can challenge that in the court, even in absolute state, not in a totalitarian state. Is it all right? Convenience without swords are nothing but words. Wise words from of convenient without sword are nothing but words. Now, what is covenants? Okay, laws, established laws. So laws without sword, which means a legal agreement actually. Covenant means a legal agreement. Precisely putting it, it would mean a legal agreement. So what are we saying here? That covenants without sword, there are various traditions of law. First, we need to understand the various traditions regarding law. Every point we will dissect and understand. Okay, so that no confusion remains in your mind. First one is the natural law. Now, what happens in natural law? Reason rules. Like this should be fair. It would be just. Okay, it should be fair, reasonable. All these things are here. Now, there are certain customary or traditional laws. What happens here? Customs and traditions rule. Now, try to understand. In Nagaland, I'll give you a live example. And these examples will come very handy when we'll study IGP. As per the Indian Constitution, Panchayati Raj institutions are there, and as mandated by the Constitution, they need to give 33% reservation to women. Now, as per the Nagas custom and tradition, women will not, which translates into, now it would be very easy for us to get enraged on these provisions. देख के लगेगा कि कैसे लोग हैं, हाय, they are being so unfair to their women, right? That why are they not allowing? Now the thing is, this case is actually going on in Supreme Court, and I'm sure that the apex court, in all its wisdom, will pronounce the correct verdict when the case comes up for hearing. Have you heard about this case? Anyone? Okay, we'll talk about it. But what I was trying to tell you, that you understood, that PRIs have 33% reservation for women everywhere in India. Nagaland, the customs say that women will not participate in administration. So, isn't there a conflict coming here between the natural law and a traditional law? Now, there is again something called fifth schedule. There is even sixth schedule. Now, why was this fifth and sixth schedule given? What was the debate that happened in Constituent Assembly? They said that northeast of India, for rest of the India, northeast looks like a monolithic entity, right? It's very easy to categorize for us when we say that he is or she is from northeast. But trust me, there is lot of diversity in northeast of India. It might look monolithic to someone who is not from northeast, but there is a lot of diversity. There are at least 1,000 tribes living there, and everyone has its unique, traditions and customs. So it's not a monolithic entity as we imagine, right? So there it was said that government said that let them be the way they want to. They are not like exactly Sarath. You have perfectly summed it up. For most of the non-South Indians, South Indian would be Madrasi, right? But Madras is just in Tamil Nadu. Why would a Hyderabadi be called a Madrasi? Or someone from Tiruvananthapuram, someone from Bangalore? In Delhi, Bangalore is also South India. I hope you agree. It is actually. So why would someone, let's say from Mysore, or maybe someone who is in Tanjore, different place than Chennai, why would he be like to call from Madras? So what happens is that because they have some unique traditions and practices that are different, it was stereotypes, right? Classic NCERT, right? From where we started. So it was thought, and the Jawaharlal Nehru gave a wonderful speech. Everyone shared that view. Hardly anyone dissented. That let them have some unique features. We'll not enforce our laws on them. Let them have what is called some kind of autonomy to preserve their cultural heritage, right? So it was said that how can a constitutional provision, the 73rd Amendment, Article 243 ZZ, this is the longest, biggest, bulkiest article of the Indian Constitution. It deals with Panchayati Raj institutions and urban local bodies, the municipalities. So how can they dilute Article 243 ZZ? How can they just do away with 73rd and 74th constitutional amendments? How can they wish away what we cherish called democratic decentralization? The answer is, what about 5th and 6th schedule? If this comes from constitution, 5th and 6th are certainly not coming from Mars and Venus. It's there in the same constitution. So you see, two constitutional provisions confronting each other. So an eternal student of Indian Constitution like me becomes very excited when such a confrontation happens. And we have all the years what the apex court had to say on this. We shall see in IGP. Did you understand the difference between traditional law and natural law by these two examples? Just remember this Nagaland case. Anyone who is having an issue? Now you see. What is Hobbes saying now? Hobbes endorses traditional law. He says, now there is religious law also. Of course, the Sharia law would fit here. Okay. So he favors traditional law. And what he says in traditional law, he says that purpose of law is to establish order and security. That's the purpose of law. Any law, this one, this one, this one. So only this can best do this. Okay. Only this can best do that. Natural law cannot control anarchy. It lacks certainty. It is impossible to enforce it. Why? Because in natural law, there will always be an element of subjectivity. Homosexuality, someone is okay with it, someone is not. I'm not saying they have to be homosexuals to support homosexuals. Even kind of, you can see what I'm writing beyond this. Even, can you? Okay, good. Even heterosexuals can support homosexuals. You don't have to be a homosexual to support homosexual, but they cannot also can't support. Okay, so how do we say which one is moral, which one is ethical, which one is legal? Subjectivity, right? It is punishable with death in certain countries. Do you know this? There are provisions of capital punishments for homosexuals in certain countries today. Yes, so there is subjectivity involved in natural law. How will you control the anarchy with such laws? Now what happens when you take shelter under traditional law? The element of subjectivity, I'm not saying gone, reduced. Okay. Natural laws are articles of peace or counsels of prudence. That is, if these laws are followed, then there will be prudence. But here is the question, how will you follow that law? Because man lacks reason. When man lacks reason, then how will he follow the natural law? He will have his own reason to be unreasonable. He will have his own reason to be unreasonable. Only power of state can make him follow the law. And then he gives a beautiful example. He did not give this. It's we who have derived this. International law is weak. All of them almost. I can go on writing here. Why? Because, but national laws are not weak. National laws, I'm not saying there is no violation of national law, but any day it is more prudent, more enforced than any international law. WTO says that you need to engage in free trade as per the Ricardo's comparative trade advantage theory. Who follows that? They have come up with novel concepts like non-tariff barriers. You study this in international relations. Okay. UNO, you know what is said about UNO? UNO has U from USA. Rest, no. Rest is no. And they have U from USA. So who is obeying that? WHO is now acting like a Chinese pawn. Right? So the thing is that there are no, because of the lack of authority, okay, there is no sovereign. That's why these laws have never become enforceable in real sense. That's the sad state of affairs here. Are you understanding it? So because of this recipient, the laws can never become enforced. They cannot be enforced. They cannot become practically applicable. Of course, there are exceptions here. So you don't have to be convinced. You just agree with what he's saying. Now we can say that even in Nagaland, there will be certain people who will say that women need is a representation of 33% in PRIs. Let us do away with a regressive, quote unquote, customs. Here is subjectivity. But as per the empirical evidence, customary laws have less element of subjectivity. Again, it can vary. It can very well vary. Totally agree. Is it all right? Now see what he says on rights. Man can enjoy rights only when state is present. State is a source of right. Remember it. Man has absolute right in state of nature, but there are less of rights and more of power. Might is right in state of nature. Hobbes belongs to positive liberty. You remember, we had this discussion earlier also regarding positive and negative. If you remember this, all of you, anyone here who is unaware of it, I can repeat. Any one of you, I think everyone knows about it, right? So what is he saying here? That kind of he prefers positive liberty because he wants security. For him, security is more than liberty. And when he's supporting positive liberty, he will want state to intervene. So security is possible only when state intervenes and regulates, correct? That's why he's saying. And then there is this famous statement by Hobbes that liberty is where law is silent. Now, this is a very, very famous thing. It has been asked in your exam. You need to understand it fully because ये आपके एग्जाम में आया हुआ है. Liberty is where the law is silent. I have written here explanation because this was to remind myself that I have to explain this to you by analyzing every aspect. Now see, some questions here. Okay. So man has absolute liberty when in state of nature. State of nature means no authority. This would mean anarchy, jungle dance, right? But man had absolute liberty. But anarchy is like constant threat to life. Okay, so to protect the life of himself, man enters into the social contract. What happens here? Surrenders which one? Right? He surrenders most of his right except the right to life. Correct? Understood till here? If you want to write, you can write this. I'll again repeat it, but try writing this time. Okay? Make a flow chart like I have made here. Under absolute liberty is possible under state of nature. Early man. Okay. Early man was under no authority. He was living in a state of nature. Natural life. There was no authority. No authority results into complete anarchy or jungle raj. Now, anarchy is not a favorable situation. It is a constant threat to life of the individual. So, to protect his own life, man enters into the social contract. What happens in social contract? He surrenders most of his rights except any question. No, that's not the reason. No, don't. Someone are wrong. NSCLIM, National Socialist Council of Naga, Isaac Muvia. We have to study it in GS paper 3, not here. Leave it here. The conclusion is wrong. That's all I can say now. There are other reasons, okay, not because of this separate identity and this and that. No, every state has a separate identity, right? In your state, there is something which is not found in other states of India. Are people in Andhra Pradesh or Telangana asking for a separate country? They are not. Okay. Everyone noted this? Can I rub this? Because I want to draw more flowcharts. Okay. Just a minute. Quickly note it down. Now can I rub all of you? So social contract we saw. Except for right to life, man has surrendered his remaining rights to the state under the social contract as proposed by Thomas Hobbes. Okay. Now from there, the sovereign state is making law. Right? Law is the command of sovereign. We have just seen it. State can punish lawbreakers. Okay, man has to act according to the will of the state instead of his own will once state is existing. Because will of the state is the laws. Is it all right? So where is the own will? You write this. Then I'll explain it. Quickly write this. 1 minute bus. Written? You see this. Man has to act according to the will of state instead of his own will once state is existing. So, own will, or let us do it this way, is the man, and he is having a choice between these two. So, when he has will of the state is the law or the laws made by state. If he violates, state shall punish him. So, where is his own will gone? Has he become a subordinate to state? Own will exist when state has made no law. Liberty exists. Man has choice. Understood this? Listen to me. And this choice, this liberty is negative liberty, which essentially implies that inviolable. So where will you be inviolable? Where there is no law. Can you dance on road? If there is a busy traffic, you cannot because state has made law. But at the midnight, you can go to dance road and you can dance. But if still police catches you, you can be penalized. Can you dance inside? You cannot dance on road. Why? Because there is law. Dance in house, however horrible dancer you are. Yes, because state made no law on the issue whether you can dance in your house or not. Whether you are Prabhudeva or the horrible dancer that you are, you can do whatever you want to in your house. There is no law that prohibits you, not on roads. Again, whether you are a Prabhudeva or a horrible dancer that you are, not on roads because there is some law. So liberty exists where there is no law. There you will become inviolable. So here Hobbes is talking about positive liberty. Okay, no confusion. Anyone? Any question? So you wanted to note it. Do I need to draw it again? Hobbes is an individualist. Now let us read this. Individualist is someone who gives preference to self over society. Individualist is someone who gives preference to self over society. So man is individualist. Man is individualist because this is his innate nature. This is what Hobbes tells us. He can't live on his own in a society. On his own, man was living in jungle. So, in order to survive in society, you need a regulator, which state else world will remain nasty, poor, brutish, thug, the same early man that he was. No worthiness. Remember what Aristotle said? That man is prior to state chronologically, but state is prior to man. Because only after the existence of state, man gets some worth in his life. He gets some order in his life, a way in his life, right? We have done these things. Okay. Now, Hobbes is a methodological individualist as he justifies state absolutism over individual. Man is utilitarian. That is why he enters into social contract. You know what is utilitarian? Maximum good for maximum numbers. So this maximum would include him. Okay, that is why he enters into social contract because he sees security. This is how it's possible. And then he's also individualistic. He's also individualist. Why? Because he prefers to be left alone. He's going for social contract only because of security problem. Okay, preference to self. Right? Are you understanding? This questions you have here, these are asked. See, again, here is a kind of a dilemma, contradiction that he's an individualistic or an absolutist. I'll explain it. I'll write something. You can write it. Let us write. It will be very clear. Desires are determining factor in human behavior. People will obey law only if compelled to do so. They will not obey because they think it morally correct to obey. Noted? Now read this point. This you wrote because they are not morally good people. Like you, Sumana, they are not very moral people. Most of the people are not very moral. You can be, or are not. Yes, they will not obey it because they think it's morally correct. There needs to be some legal element in it. There has to be a deterrence which only the sovereign can enforce. Not obey simply because they think it's morally correct to obey. You don't engage in acts because you know it's morally correct or incorrect, because there is a fear, because there are laws in place. Understanding it? Yes, it would be a crime. Even if you are hungry and poor, stealing would be a crime. Okay, understand this. Desires are determining factor, not morality or Hobbes. So what you will do and what you will don't do depends on desire, not on your morality. That is why laws are needed. They will restrain your desires. See, morality has no legal implications. Nothing is there legal in morality. You know that this is the morally correct thing to do, but you will not do that until there is a law. That moral correctness has to be backed with legal element in it. Okay, now you understood. Again, I'm coming to it. I'm coming to it. I'm coming to it. How does it make Hobbes an individualist? Because, right, right this, he says that the sovereign power shouldn't interfere in some spheres of life and people should have the liberty. You know what he said? Everyone listen carefully. I'm reading the statement. To buy and sell and otherwise contract with one another, to choose their own abode, their own diet, their own trade of life, and institute their children as they themselves think fit and the like. Matlab, what they want to buy and sell, which contract they want to enter into. Of course, that contract has to be legally enforceable. That will depend on state. But don't come and tell me which contract I should enter into. You just see uh, if I'm a party to that contract, then there's a legal implication for the same, which means if I've entered into a contract with the other party, and if the other party cheats me, state shall come and rescue me. But whether I'll enter into this contract or not, that is totally my choice. To choose their own abode, where will I decide to live? In Delhi or in Hyderabad? That depends on me. Their own diet, what will I eat? Their own trade of life, what will I choose to be in my life? Institute their children as they themselves think fit. What would my offsprings do? And the like. So does that not make him an individualistic? When he's saying that sovereign should not come into all these things, nature of contract, state मुझे ना पता है मुझे किस तरह का contract करना है, मेरा occupation क्या होगा, मेरा घर कहाँ है, मेरा खाना क्या है, मेरा बच्चा कहाँ जा रहा है पढ़ने के लिए, समझे? Who will say this? An absolutist or an individualist? बताओ. Only an individualist would say this. And in these spheres, he wants the state to remain silent. You have a choice. He is creating the concept of individualism by referring the state from making laws on those, therefore it ensures liberty. Again, his liberty is negative liberty. Okay, his negative is negative liberty, where you are inviolable. So, what occupation you will profess, where will you live, what will you eat, what will be the nature of your commercial transactions, these things will be decided by you alone. No one else will come here. Okay, no one else will come here. And during a time where everyone preferred the state to be the way absolute control, and then he talks about these things. That is what makes him an individualist. Yes or no? Reason enough, correct? These are the reasons enough. I hope you all agree. Now it is said that he starts as an individualist but ends up as an absolutist. This we have seen, the reasons we have seen here. There are enough reasons. Most of the factors, occupation, okay, you can again say the way one decides to bring up children, of course, subject to there is this kind of morality, not morality, legality. Okay, do not take your children to some illegal methods. So he supports state absolutism when it comes to social contract. Most of the time, he is an individualist. Only when there is social contract, that state will do this, state will do that, then he is favoring state. And how is he favoring state? He wants his state to be an absolute state. Once state exists, so there are clear-cut demarcated paths, right? This is what the state will do. This is what the individual will do. They will learn parallel lines. They will not cross each other. Macpherson is criticizing him and saying that he's an individualist. This is an assumption, but he ends up being an absolutist. Actually, ending up being an kind of absolutist. But we will sum it up by saying that is absolutism and individualism. Now, listen to this very, very clearly. We need to know it. Absolutism is in social contract. Okay, just a minute. Absolutism is where man has to obey the social contract theory. Okay, and this is being done to maintain law, order, do away with anarchy. Right? But apart from that, there is a path for the individual. We have just discussed it. What kind of proficiency? I want to enter into a contract. Like I want to buy this digital pen. So I go to the shopkeeper, this tab on which I'm teaching you. So I go to the shopkeeper and I say that I need so and so things and I want to conduct my classes online. So he says, okay, this is the price, and he gives me a receipt. Correct? And there are certain features which he explains to me. That this is how it will work. This is like I had some challenge in operating it for a day or two. So once I'm fluent with it, I expect it to function in an uninterrupted way. Now, if God forbids, there is some issue, I'll catch the person that you have given me a faulty product or there is some issue, please fix it up. I'm having trouble in my class. So again, this is there something written in the receipt that any technical fault will do the honors and will rescue you from the same 6 months guarantee or 1 year guarantee. Okay. So state will not tell me whether I should buy an iPad or a Samsung tab. Okay. But state will, of course, come to my rescue if whatever I bought, it does not function as per the contract between me and the seller. Okay. So here, the kind of contract, again, not the enforceability of the contract, but the kind of contract that the individuals will enter into will be decided solely by the individual, not by the state. State will not come and tell me, don't buy a Samsung product, buy an Apple product. Okay, or don't buy a Xiaomi product, right? The Chinese one. Of course, the state has officially not said that. Indians on their own have done that because of situations that you are well aware of. Now, where will I live? Abroad. The Constitution of India gives you the right to live wherever you want to. There was one state where there was certain restriction that's done away with. Of course, in Northeast, there is something called ILP. There are certain reasons for that. Food. Okay. So that's why he says that his absolutism, which he gives to the state, has a logical backing. And his individualism, which again he gives to individuals, has equally strong logical back. There is no contradiction. Thou shall not meet. You have studied from ICSC. I am quoting Shakespeare. Thou shall not meet. They are parallel lines. They will never intersect each other. Got it? Sabine believes Hobbes remains individualistic even after favoring state absolutism because it is for the protection of individual. Again, utilitarianism coming here. Greater good for greater numbers. That's the idea behind his social contract and state absolutism theory. Now you tell me what is the question, what is the doubt that you have? Feel free to ask anything. Yes, you can submit that way, that negative liberty is individualism where you are inviolable. Positive liberty, of course, state has made certain don'ts for you. Social contract, very good. You see, thou shall not meet. Social contract is a different thing where state is absolute. Individualism, where individual is inviolable, is a different path. Thou shall not meet. Okay. Question anyone has? Yes, you can. You can quote Macpherson. That's why I've written it here. You can quote Sabine as well. You can quote him as well. You can quote both the thinkers. Because the question would be like, Hobbes start as an individual, examine, or they will say discuss, or they will say comment, or they will say critic. We have already seen the keywords, how to take care of them. Remember, I sent you a document in your group, and also I made a video on that. So don't you think that we'll need different perspectives? We will need both Macpherson and Sabine. Are you understanding or not? So did he say that state does not have authority to make decisions in personal life, or even if state makes law on a personal life, he should obey, but are concluding that he's individualist? No, don't take conclusions. Conclusions is what we have written here. See, state, he has clearly instructed that state should not make laws on these personal issues. What if state does? He's silent on that. He does not call for a revolution. He's a theorist. Okay, he did not live to see all his experiments. So social contract will be taken to new dimensions by John Locke. More reduced role of the state, he will say. So he's a theorist. Hobbes is a theorist. We are studying political theories and philosophy. So what the state does and how the individual is supposed to react when state violates the same. Like, liberties where law is silent. So there is not clarity here because Hobbes is silent. Okay. Any other question, anyone? So no questions here. You have written what I asked you to write, and also you have kind of drawn it, the flowcharts that I made. All of you did that, right? So here we are. We have finished Hobbes. I have discussed 3 questions that have appeared in your main exam from this thinker, and we shall keep visiting the questions that your exam has asked time and again. Okay, so take good care. Study these things very. See, don't get confused. Because we have broken the thinker different perspectives into different parts, and then we have analyzed it. So there is no need to get confused. What about Hobbes and Machiavelli? What I said, I can't recall. If you can tell me, anyone who can tell me, that will come. Machiavelli, I have left why he's an that many line, right? Wait, I remember that. We have not even actually Machiavelli will after we are done with WPT. And when we start with Indian political thought, when we see Chanakya, only then you can be able to kind of answer all questions that they have asked in your exam regarding Machiavelli. Because Machiavelli is often being compared to different, Machiavelli is often being compared to different thinkers. So we need to understand different thinkers before we analyze and understand everything that is there regarding Machiavelli. That stage will come very soon. Currently, my only concern is that are you able to understand what I am teaching? That's it. If yes, then nothing else regarding your preparation. Okay, then let us meet tomorrow with John Locke. Study very hard and take good care. We are meeting tomorrow.